my God I believe, no equal has He. Lord of the universe, compassionate to me. Muhammad the Prophet taught me the way to be honest and truthful throughout every day.
The Holy Quran to life is my guide. Its teachings I follow, by it I abide. Islam my religion preaches good deeds, mercy and kindness to the right path it leads.
I was totally deviant while going astray. No faith, no belief, lost all the way.
Luqman grew up with a feeling of emptiness inside. In retrospect, he realized that there were many signs and messages that could have guided him to a different way, but he failed to understand them. He had no one to guide and put him on the right way. He was alone.
Assalamu alaikum. My name is Luqman. I grew up in New York, Queens, New York. Most of my life was a mystery early on. I started questioning parts of my life when I was around 7. Something major happened in my life. My parents had gotten divorced. My mother was the mother of 3 children, my older sister, myself, and a younger brother. My father had come to her preaching Islam, telling her that this is the way of life. You know, this is what he wanted his children to be brought up on, Islam. At that time, we were Catholics, practicing Catholics. I went to Catholic school, and life was pretty normal up until that point. She denied. She turned down the request. She said we would stay Catholics and that they couldn't no longer be married. So he went his way, and we went our way. So the majority of my life, up until I entered college, there was always a missing part in my life. There was always a void, And when I was young, I used to think it was because my father wasn't there. But I learned out later that it was something greater. Something very major was missing. There was always signs calling me to do something good.
The void within him expanded as he entered his teenage years and young adulthood. He tried many ways to fill this void, but without success. As he looks back on his life, Luqman recalls that his young adult years were the most memorable time. Like most young people, he was desperate to fit in. He had always felt unnoticed and unacknowledged. Growing up without guidance to know what is right and wrong finally had its dire consequences on his life. Trying to be cool, he went from smoking cigarettes and gradually moved to going to clubs and taking drugs. From here, his life started to go downhill fast.
So that's what I ended up doing. It started out with the mild drug known as marijuana, and it led to things as hard as acid, PCP, cocaine, not heroin, alhamdulillah, but it was a very, very tough time, because once you started one, it just grew on you. Like you would do whatever you could to get it, And I found myself working at one time 3 jobs, just to make sure that nobody else knew that I had a habit. So one job was just to live, one job was for school, and the other job was to support my habit. And so, I figured as long as I could keep it from my family, that everything was all right. But living this type of life in America attracts attention from the police. So as a result, I developed a criminal record overnight, just hanging around the wrong people. And like I said before, my life just continued to go downhill.
Drugs drew him into a desperate cycle of trying to get money to pay for the next fix, while trying to retain some semblance of balance in his life, and all the while attempting to keep his dark secrets away from his family. His life was spinning out of control. He found the bachelor lifestyle empty and unfulfilling. But with a feeling of depression and helplessness, he was aware that he did not know how to stop.
Would talk to my father periodically, and he would always give me, good words of advice, not necessarily hadiths or ahadith or, sayings from the Quran, any verses, but just fatherly advice, and it always made sense. But at the time, I was so lost, I was so gone, I was so blind. I just would, nod my head and say, yeah, that's good, and it would just go in one ear and out the other. So that's why when it was time for me to pay the price, I was on the verge of being locked up in prison, and he came down and he would come to my court hearings and he would sit with me, and he later on told me that he was praying for me, asking Allah to make sure that I don't go to jail, because it wouldn't be a good environment obviously for me. And alhamdulillah, I never went to jail, and basically I tried to walk a thin line until I got out of the police scene, until I could get the charges dropped, and just get out of that. And I figured out that one of the things that I needed to stop going to was hanging around the wrong people. I wouldn't go down that route anymore. I started sticking to myself. And, I became very interested in the news. It was actually around the time of 9/11. And so I would just sit home and try to figure out this, this mystery. Everybody's baffled. The whole world basically stopped. What's going on? Who are these Muslims?
Around the time of 9/11, he started to become a loner. His society started to target him along with Muslims, because he, along with them, was considered the other in mainstream American society. This made him feel that he could relate to Muslims, but most of all, he felt like a victim. So he decided to leave America hopeful that he could change his life and start afresh. The time for this was to come a little further down the track. After a long night of partying and feeling hopeless and depressed, Luqman had a dream. This dream that changed him was a clear sign, directing him to change his life. But would he have the courage to follow this dream?
In this dream, all I could hear was a voice. The voice said to me, if you want to go to paradise, you have to accept Islam. And so immediately after I woke up, I told my family exactly what happened. And the only Muslim I really knew at the time was my father. I hadn't talked to my father in a while, but this was a good reason to call him up and let him know about the things that were going on in my life. And so that's what I did. I called him up. He was very excited, and he told me what steps to take as far as accepting Islam.
Luqman called his father and told him about his dream. With great happiness, his father explained the steps he had to take to become a Muslim. and also explained the meaning of his dream and how ironically it had fulfilled his own, because his father had been praying that at least one of his children would accept Islam. As Luqman's prayers were being answered, his father's dream was also coming true. Luqman's Shahada was not the end of his journey, it was the beginning. He was on a quest for knowledge, trying to understand his new way of life, and he finally found a guide to help him along the way.
My quest for knowledge began as soon as I took my Shahada. I was very interested in learning this newfound way of life, but I didn't know how to go about it. I thought maybe the more I read, the more I'd know. So this is what I did, and I started implementing what I read to the people I knew. And I found out the hard way that this wasn't the way to do it. So I sought guidance from my father, and he suggested that I go back to the Imam that I took my Shahada with. In the beginning, it was rough. Me and the Imam Al-Amin, we didn't get along like we should have in the beginning. But one day, or 3 days in a row, actually, Allah put us together for Fajr prayer, just me and him. I would call the adhan, and he would lead the prayer. And by the third day, I realized that this was Allah giving me another opportunity and guiding me to this individual. And so I sat with him, and I began listening to what he had to say. He would give classes. He told me where to go, what books to read. So he was a guide along this road that I've been traveling. And alhamdulillah, because of the words he's given me, I've ended up here in Egypt. Every journey has its, difficulties and needs, its sustenance. And this juice right here is the juice that'll quench my thirst along this travel, along this journey.
With a newfound energy, he emerged from his confusion and helplessness and embarked on his new beginning.
My dreams were answered. I got the call, and I accepted Islam. From then, it was off to the races. I was very, very invigorated. I wanted to learn as much as I can. I wanted to do as much as I can. And I also wanted to tell as many people as I can about, my newfound way of life, So I went to my family, and I told them, and like I said before, everything I learned or everything I read, I tried to relay it to them. I tried to call them, and I felt like, they would accept it openly because, I was their brother, I was their son, niece, nephew, whatever. We was all related, so I wouldn't tell them a lie. So they didn't take to my advice very seriously. They might have thought maybe it was temporary. So I felt like maybe I didn't have enough knowledge. So I wanted to go in search of this knowledge. So I went to the masjid. I sat around. I talked to a couple of the brothers, but I started noticing that, certain people, would give me different views, different opinions, and none of it was really sound, knowledge, fundamental knowledge. So the search continued. I would continue to read, continue to stay close to the masjid, and then, I got the advice from my father to stay close to Imam Al-Amin, and this is what I did. He would hold classes he taught me some Quran. He actually taught me how to read Quran.
We need to strive to know the ruling of the Sharia on a particular incident. Why scholars had to put a lot of effort trying to figure out how to give the ruling on such topics and issues. Islam tells you to look good, to smell good. The reason of the recession was the collaboration between insurance companies and the banks. Some scholars, though, stated that it is permissible for you to insure because you're compelled to do this by the government, by law, but you're not allowed to benefit from the insurance policy.
His father gave him good advice when he told him to stay close to Imam Al-Amin. The Imam not only taught Luqman how to read Quran, but also taught him that Islam is the best way of life and should be our top priority. He also told him that to be a true Muslim, he had to gain knowledge in order to understand it properly and spread it in the best way. But, like he said, when it came to knowledge, he needed more.
But I still needed more. And it was difficult because I was working, you know. I had to support myself. And I wanted to seek knowledge too. So my time was very, you know, it was divided amongst a lot of things. You know, I still had family, you know, and I still had a lot of priorities. So I needed to balance it all out. But then I realized in the end, there's no way that I could focus my time to learning Arabic, to learning Islam properly, you know, in its entirety, unless I go overseas and study, you know, devote all my time, devote all my energy. And this was my plan. This was my goal in life. I wanted to get married and go overseas and study. You know, and if I couldn't get married, I just wanted to go overseas. But I needed to leave America. That's the main point.
Luqman's commitment to gain knowledge was now leading him to another phase of life. After struggling for a while, the time finally came to make even more fundamental changes.
So at this point in time, my Imam Al-Amin, he was making suggestions for me to find a wife. We sat with a couple of sisters. None of them seemed to work out. And my time was ticking as far as me wanting to leave and go overseas. So I figured if I could find a wife before I left, then it was meant to be. Otherwise, I would have to search when I got over there. I didn't want to search. I wanted to study when I went overseas. So there was an offer that came up for a class by Al-Maghrib Institute. So I went there, just seeking knowledge, not looking for anything else. And subhanAllah, I ended up meeting a sister that I would eventually marry. How it happened was the first day of school, I had a flat. I caught a flat on the way there, but I found out afterwards. And afterwards, I'm sitting outside my car wondering, you know, what to do next. And this sister comes walking up the street, you know, and she's going her way. And I look at her, I say, am I interested in her? I said, no, she's not my type. So I don't think anything of it. But 2 days later, me and her in the same auditorium, and she's standing on the stage, and the light above her was so brilliant, it made her glow. So I said, this has to be the one. This is the sign. This is it. This is the one. So I need to take the right procedures to get her information so I could see if she's available. So this is what I did. Come to find out, her wali was a brother named Imam Suraj Wahaj. At first, I thought this was just one of the sisters, many sisters, that he was the wali of. And so what I did was I scheduled an appointment, and we sat down and we hit it off great. And he asked me if I was ready to marry, what makes me think I was ready to marry his wife, his daughter. Excuse me, I'm still nervous from that meeting. And so I said, I didn't know she was your daughter. I can't marry her. She's not the one for me. So he's like, no, sit down. You and her would be great. So he proceeded to set up an interview with us all there. And so we sat there. Come to find out, we all had the same interests. We both wanted to go overseas to study. We wanted to both make Hajj, and we was both students of knowledge. You know, we met at an institute for Islam. So, you know, things was already rolling in our direction. So I wanted to get married a month after that, at most, because I figured this is the one. She's the one, and she wants to marry me, so why wait? But she suggested that we get married approximately a year later from then, which at first was a little hard for me, but I had it planned that I would use this time wisely to save up enough money to take care of all of the expenses that I need to do, or I had in America to leave. So this is what I did. And during that time, we would come to learn more about each other. And we had more and more in common, and we liked the same things, and we wanted the same things in life. You know, we both wanted Jannah, paradise, like most people do. And, you know, we figured it would be better if we did it together. You know, it would be easier if we helped one another. So, where would we go overseas? That was the big question. And what would I do for work? I knew a brother who studied in Yemen, and he told me some good advice. He said, if you go overseas, you should teach English. So I set out to learn how to teach English. I took some online courses, and I put in my application. It was rejected. I didn't have any place to work. So Allah opened up another door. There was another brother who stayed in the same area as I, and he opened up a new school in Cairo that taught Arabic and English. So he said, you could come work for me if you don't have a place to work. So I said, okay, I just have to get over to Cairo. But how would I do that? That's enough money, and I had enough bills, and the bills just kept piling up with this big wedding she wanted. So at that time, my mother, she came to the rescue. She offered to pay for us, pay for our honeymoon, wherever we wanted to go. So the only place I knew of now was Cairo. So that was our plan. We wanted to go to Cairo and spend our honeymoon there and wait for the next sign for Allah to tell us what we should do next, which way should we go. And that's what we did.
Having discovered the real meaning of life to spread the religion of Islam, he and his wife found the road to Egypt very smooth. The Egyptians are open-hearted and gave the necessary help and support.
Well, I'm here. We made it to Egypt, and everything has been going very, very smoothly, I must say. The Egyptians has opened up their doors to us. Everything we've needed, we've been provided with. I went and I studied at the school in Alexandria. I got my degree for teaching English as a second language. And so from there, I needed to find a job. So it was rough in the beginning. Right after school ended, it was Ramadan, so there wasn't really any work till after Ramadan. So I ended up finding a job at a local school right close by to where we stayed. It was in walking distance, actually. And I taught 5th graders, 6th graders, 9th and 10th graders. And they liked me as much as I liked them. But it all came to an end. December 25th. Yes, Christmas. I was let go on Christmas. I wasn't able to I wasn't able to fulfill all the needs that the school wanted. But I saw it as a way of me leaving another thing for Allah. I left America seeking Allah's knowledge, and He blessed me with something better. I left the school seeking a better opportunity for myself and for my family, and He blessed me with something better. Now, after I left there, so many other positions opened up. So many other schools wanted me, offering me better wages and a better place to live. But I didn't take any of them. I got a better offer from a group of brothers who stay right here in City Besha, my new home, our home, me and my wife. And what they offered us a chance to go to school, to learn Arabic, what we came to Egypt for. They offered us Islamic studies at the masjid, as well as Quran studies at the masjid. And on top of that, I don't have to work. We're working for Allah now, and everything has been going our way. So far, to date, I've been on a couple of Islamic programs, telling others about Islam, reminding Muslims about Islam, leaving things for the cause of Allah. Because this is why we're here. This is why we're put on earth. So that's what me and her, my wife, that's what we've been doing. We've been coming up with ideas to reach out to our fellow brothers and sisters back in America, to open up the door for them so they can make hijrah as well, so they can join us in learning, because this is what we're here for, to learn more about our deen, our way of life. Right now, we're presently still in the beginning stages of Arabic school. I'm passing all my tests. I'm doing actually very well. I haven't been as fluent as I would like, but my grades are very good. And we're still learning the last Jews in the Quran. That's coming along very smoothly as well. I don't know. There's not too much more I can say about that, but everybody's been very kind, very helpful. Anytime we needed something, they was always willing to do whatever they could to help out. That's more than what we're used to. There's more blessings than we've ever could imagine. We don't have to worry about food. We don't have to worry about a place to live. We've been blessed with all of this, and I owe it all to Allah. Giving us all these opportunities to praise Him, to do what He asks us to do. To follow His Prophet, sallallahu alaihi wasallam. The best way we can. Every day is a struggle for us, but we know in the end it's all worthwhile. It's all for paradise, Jannah, and inshallah we'll make it. Ameen.
Luqman is willing to give up the pleasures of this life to continue his journey. Although it is difficult at times, his growing faith is guiding him through all the ups and downs of life.
I was totally deviant while going astray. No faith, no belief, lost all the way. Now I'm a Muslim and God I pray. For all His blessings, my voice I raise.
In my God I believe, no equal has He, Lord of the universe, compassionate to me. Muhammad the Prophet taught me the way to be honest and truthful throughout every day.
The Holy Quran to life is my guide.